Okay, let's jump right in. Have you ever felt like your organization is just constantly fighting against reality? Well, today we're going to dig into exactly why that happens. And maybe more importantly, how we can start building systems that actually work with the world, instead of trying to wrestle it into submission. And this quote, it just nails it. This is the absolute core of the problem. Look, it's not that we don't have smart people, right? It's not that we don't have enough data. The real issue is this massive growing gap between the way we design our organizations and the world we're actually trying to operate in.
All right, so let's really unpack that. This mismatch. What are we even talking about when we say we have these static, rigid systems trying to survive in a world that is, well, alive and changing every single second?
And this image here, this is a perfect picture of how we usually do things. We design our processes like these rigid blueprints, right? We have this built-in assumption that we can map everything out, that we can predict all the twists and turns. And the fundamental belief is simple. If everyone just follows the steps, 1, 2, 3, everything will be fine. But here's the thing. That assumption completely falls apart. Because think about it. When do the most important decisions get made? It's not when everything's going according to plan. No way. It's in those chaotic moments, those gaps between the rules, when something totally unexpected happens and the procedure manual is suddenly useless. And that is precisely where these old, rigid systems just completely crumble. So if that's the trap we're in, how in the world do we get out? Well, to find a new way forward, we're going to look at a couple of, let's call them unlikely thinkers. They come from totally different worlds, but they both give us a powerful new way to look at this whole problem. First up, we've got Douglas Hofstadter. He's a cognitive scientist, the guy behind the incredible book Gödel Escherbach, and he's all about how meaning and intelligence just emerge. And then you've got Alfred North Whitehead, a philosopher, who basically said, hey, what if we've been thinking about reality all wrong? So yeah, on the surface, these two guys couldn't be more different. But it turns out they were both chasing after the very same incredibly deep question. And this is the big one. How does coherence, things like intelligence, understanding, even just simple order, how does it emerge in a complex system when there's no central boss, no master controller pulling all the strings? If we can crack that, and I mean really crack it, that's the secret to designing organizations that can actually thrive. So Hofstadter's big idea is this. You can't just program intelligence into something. You can't just write a bunch of rules and say, okay, now you're smart. It doesn't work that way. Think about a flock of starlings, right? Thousands of birds moving in perfect harmony. There's no leader shouting orders. That beautiful, coherent pattern, it emerges from each bird following a few simple rules in relation to its neighbors. It's all about interaction, feedback, and recognizing patterns. Okay, so now let's look at Whitehead. He takes this idea and blows it up to cover, well, everything. He basically said we have a fundamental problem with how we see the world. We tend to think of it as a collection of static things, like these solid separate blocks. But Whitehead said, nope, that's all wrong. Reality isn't a collection of things, it's a flowing process. It's a river. Nothing is ever static. Everything always is in a state of becoming something else. All right, so now that we have these two massive ideas in our heads, Hofstadter's emergent meaning and Whitehead's process reality, we can finally see with crystal clarity why our old school approach to process design is so broken. And this right here, this is what we can call the enforcement model. And let's be honest, this probably looks really familiar to a lot of you. Step 1, someone defines the one right way to do something. Step 2, we train everybody to follow that exact sequence. Step 3, we measure how well they comply. And step 4, when someone steps out of line, we escalate. It's a model built entirely on the fantasy of a predictable, controllable world.
And here is the punchline, the absolute key takeaway. When things get messy and complex, which is, always, this enforcement model doesn't create reliability. It does the exact opposite. It creates fragility. Why? Because when a real shock hits the system, it has zero capacity to adapt or learn. Its only response is to double down, to enforce the rules even harder, right up until the moment it just snaps.
Okay, that's a pretty bleak picture. So if trying to enforce control is a dead end, what's the alternative? Where do we go from here? Well, it requires a fundamental shift in our thinking. We have to move from a stance of control to a stance of sensing. This means we need to start asking a totally different question. Instead of asking, how do we get people to follow the process, we need to ask, How do we design a process that can observe itself and actually adapt on the fly? The goal isn't to make people better cogs, it's to make the process itself more intelligent. And when you do that, it completely flips the role of people on its head. Suddenly, they're not just executors of a predefined script, they're not cogs in the machine anymore, they become the crucial interpreters, the sense makers. They're the ones who can provide the rich, nuanced context that a rigid system could never, ever understand on its own. This is where something called tacit knowledge becomes the most valuable asset you have. And what is that? It's not the stuff you can write down in a knowledge base. It's that gut feeling a seasoned engineer gets when a machine just sounds wrong. It's the intuition a veteran sales leader has in a tough negotiation. It's that hard-won, experience-based ability to make a judgment call when the playbook has run out of pages. It's how we navigate the world when knowing facts just isn't enough. Now, if you think this is all just interesting theory, let's talk about AI. Because the rise of AI makes this entire conversation not just important, but absolutely, critically urgent. It's like pouring gasoline on this fire. We have to be crystal clear about this. AI is phenomenal at accelerating outputs. It can do things faster and at a scale we couldn't imagine, but what it cannot do is supply judgment. In fact, AI doesn't replace that deep, tacit human knowledge. It does the opposite. It shines a massive, high-powered spotlight on any place where that judgment is missing. When you use AI to scale a broken or mindless process, you don't get a better process. You get a bigger, faster, more spectacularly broken process. Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? What's the path forward? How do we start building systems and organizations that are truly designed to cultivate human discernment instead of just demanding mindless compliance? Well, this table really lays out the whole transformation. It's a total mindset shift. We've got to move from thinking in terms of static workflows to seeing them as living, evolving systems. We need to stop obsessing over rule following and start designing roles for judgment holding. Instead of tracking compliance metrics that tell us if people followed the rules, we need learning signals that tell us what's actually happening. And this is a big one. We stop seeing automation as a way to replace people and start seeing it as a way to amplify their unique human judgment. And really, this quote just ties it all together perfectly. The real competitive advantage today, it's not just about being faster or bigger anymore. Everyone's trying to do that. The real advantage comes from the deep-seated ability to decide well, to make good calls when you simply don't have all the answers, when certainty is a luxury you can't afford. So I want to leave you with one final question to take with you, to think about in your own world. Take a hard look at the systems and processes you rely on every single day. And ask yourself this: was this thing designed to enforce compliance, or was it designed to learn? Because honestly, the answer to that simple question will tell you everything you need to know about whether your organization is built to be fragile or built to be truly resilient.